Which is better, calisthenics or weights? I've had a good question come in overnight. I do like this question. And it comes from one of our UMS tribe members. Amber has said, I am still a beginner. I noticed that my new UMS program incorporates weights, which I love. So my question is, does your calisthenics and gym workout programs yield the same end results, or are they completely different on what the goal is? My only goal thus far are longevity, mobility, and the new norm that I spoke about recently. So we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about whether calisthenics or weights are going to give you the same results, and what is the best option for you. What should you be focusing on based on your goals? And before I get started, today's show is brought to you by our the only time in a very long time that we've reduced the price of our UMS online coaching. We've got a special going on right now, only for the month of November. So you've got about 8 days left where you can jump on this. And you can join our UMS online coaching at a 38% discount. It's normally $79 a month, but right now you can get it for $49 a month. So if you go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount, you can grab an incredible lifetime saving for as long as you stay with us. We haven't done that for a very long time. We won't be doing it again for a while either. So jump on board. There's about 7 memberships left. We've made 20 available. 13 have been grabbed already. All right. So calisthenics, weights, which one should you do? What's best? What's the best option for you? So both are resistance training. That's the first thing to understand. So, you do weightlifting or calisthenics to build muscle and to build strength. Now, you may do calisthenics like for me. Sorry, there's a lot of kookaburras outside my nose. Over here in Australia at 5:30 a.m., all the kookaburras wake up and I can hear them all laughing outside my window. You might be doing calisthenics because you want to unlock calisthenics skills, and that I'll talk about that as well. Most people aren't really doing weights because they want to unlock skills. But calisthenics people definitely have goals. They want to do handstand push-ups and one-arm pull-ups and things like that. So let's leave that aside. I'll talk about that later. But if we talk about the general reasons why you go to a gym and why you do resistance training, they're both going to produce the same results, but they get there in very different ways because they both train the muscles in a way that will build strength and that will build muscle. But they get there in a different way. And the reason why I say that is because calisthenics is way harder to scale than weightlifting, because when you're doing calisthenics, you only have your own body weight to work with unless you're strong enough to add weight. Like, for example, if you do weighted dips where you put a weight belt on and you hang some weight off the weight belt, or if you do weighted pull-ups where you do the same thing, where you put a weight belt on and you do weighted pull-ups. But obviously, you have to already be at a pretty good level of strength to be able to do that, to be able to add weight to it. So as a beginner doing calisthenics, you have to be very, very creative with the way that you can still manage load and get a good workout done. Because for the most part, good technique is what you really want to be focusing on. And I know there are examples out there of people who, got there where if you look in their early days, they had really, really poor technique and they, they just pushed through and just trained for years and years and years and got good at calisthenics. But it really is the long route, and the people that I've seen do that, they all started when they were very young. I've seen a lot of, incredible calisthenics athletes, earlier videos, and they were all teenagers when they started, and at least the ones that I've seen. And when you start at that young, when your testosterone is just pumping and your body is basically just geared for growth, it does happen differently than, us adults. And when you're training as an adult, you just do not get the free gains that teenagers and children get in the gym. So you have to be more creative with your training, or maybe more methodical, I should say. And so good technique is what's really, really important, because if you're not controlling your scapula properly when you're doing pushing and pulling movements, you just won't develop the same musculature. You won't develop the same connection, and you'll always just have imbalances as you'll get bigger. And so when you're doing calisthenics, the way that you do that is by using leverage. So the mechanical advantage from leverage that changes from one exercise to another. So for example, most people have seen a push-up or a push-up on the knees. That is one way, excuse me, that you use leverage and you increase the mechanical advantage that you have in an exercise to make it easier. Because when you stand up on your feet, it puts more weight into your arms and into your shoulders. And then in the same way, if you do a push-up versus if you do a push-up with your hands on the back of a couch. So, a push-up where you start with your hands on the ground and your spine is kind of at an angle like this. Whereas if you've got a couch up here and you lift your arms up to there and you put your body on that angle, the mechanical advantage is increased, because what happens is as your shoulders elevate, more of your weight transfers down to your feet. So there's less weight in your arms. So you're doing the same movement. You're still training the muscles in the same way, but it makes it much easier to do. But that is still very, very hard for beginners to get right. I've seen a lot of people that really struggle with doing push-ups on their knees or push-ups on the back of a couch. And then, if you want to go into pull-ups, pull-ups are a whole different beast. Like if you can't do one single pull-up, there's a whole series of things that we go through where you start doing feet-assisted pull-ups first, and then you do, chest to bar holds, and then you do jumping pull-ups where you do a low pull-up bar and you use your legs to help you jump, and then you use eccentric reps, and then eventually you can, bust through to getting, your first full pull-up. And so that whole process is much harder to get right than when you do weights, because when you lift weights, so doing a push-up trains the exact same muscles as doing a chest press or a bench press, exactly the same muscles. The difference is that when you do a chest press with dumbbells or a bench press with a barbell, is that you can choose the weight that suits your strength level. So it's much better for a beginner to get started with weightlifting exercises. You can always just go and get the really light weights and dial in your technique and develop strength. And I really got this wrong. When I started doing calisthenics training, I had been training already for 17 years, but it was all in martial arts, and I had a very weak upper body, but I didn't think I did. I had tickets on myself, and I thought I was a lot better than I was, and I thought I would be able to do calisthenics a lot easier and a lot quicker than what had happened for me, because I started in my mid to late 30s. I think I was 36 or 37 when I first started doing calisthenics, and I'm 46 now, and I suffered the consequences. I basically just got this string of injuries, one after the other. First I got golfer's elbow, then I sprained, I got sprains in my wrist here, and then I got tennis elbow, and then eventually I got slap tears in both shoulders. And all of those things kind of happened progressively. And all like reflecting back on it now, it was so clear that my body wasn't strong enough for what I was trying to do. And so for me, the reason why I went kind of straight into it is because I could already do a few pull-ups. I wasn't great at pull-ups, but I could do a few pull-ups. I still could do like one set of like 5 pull-ups, and I could definitely do push-ups, and I could do dips, and I could do pike push-ups and things like that. So I thought that this was okay for me to start with. But my body overall was weak, especially my shoulders. I had very little muscle in my chest, very little muscle in my lats, and my inner unit of stabilization muscle systems, so the rotator cuff and the scapular stabilizers for the shoulders, they were very weak. And those muscles are very very hard to challenge correctly with calisthenics exercises. Weightlifting is definitely superior for training those inner unit. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There are, in the earlier stages, there are much better options. There's some really good calisthenics options, but the weightlifting options that you'll have for training the rotator cuff and the scapular stabilizers in the earlier stages are superior to calisthenics options, in my opinion. And so what I've found to work much, much better for people, because make no mistake, this is the mistake that I made. When you want to get good at calisthenics, raw muscle mass and raw strength really matter. It matters so much more than what I thought it did when I started. I have always been somebody that rejected the idea of being a bodybuilder and training to be buff. It just never appealed to me. And it was probably my ego, because when I was younger, I wasn't buff at all. And when I started calisthenics, and I probably was that was the easy way out. That's what our ego does. Our ego has a really good way of kind of rejecting things that are going to be hard for us to do and saying, nah, it's fine if I do it like this way. So that was a big mistake that I made, because the strength like raw strength and raw muscle mass plays a huge role in developing calisthenics skills. I've got a friend named Sebastian Oreb, who on Instagram is AKA Australian Strength Coach. Excuse me. And he's a really, really, really strong power lifter. And I remember this really, really clearly. It would have been 10 years ago now. I was, trying to learn how to do the flag, and I was doing these eccentric straddle flags, the human flag. And Bass came up and he was just laughing, and he goes, "Oh, what are you trying to do here?" And I explained to him what the end result of a human flag was. And he just went, "Oh, what, like this?" And he went up to the store bars and just held a flag and just went, "Do you mean like this? Is this what you're talking about?" We couldn't believe it. I was training with a couple of other guys, and he's somebody that had never touched calisthenics before, but he was so strong from powerlifting that he just had the raw strength to be able to go straight into it. And I've seen also his brother Cameron, who is also a very, very, very strong dude, when I was training muscle ups, and he was, asking me, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I told him, and I said, "Have you ever tried it?" He goes, "No." And he just went up to the bar, a bar, not rings, a bar, and pulled himself up to the bar and just went, and just ground himself over it and pushed up. First time he'd ever tried it. So raw strength and muscle mass is a huge, huge, huge part of calisthenics. And it's something that cost me some really bad injuries that, that I could have avoided. I really could have avoided these injuries if I had have just accepted that I didn't have the strength and I didn't have the muscle mass that was required to be able to unlock the calisthenics, skills that I wanted to do. And I've since then really taken a different approach. I had these slap tears in both shoulders. I completely fixed those without surgery, and then I just made it my mission to build as much muscle and strength as I could. And I was doing that as somebody in my 40s, without using steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. So I had to do it the hard way and the slow way. And it took me a couple of years to first I had to fix my slap tears. I had to get back to a point where I could train and move my shoulders and everything without pain. And then I really just focused on building muscle, and I put on 10 kilograms or 22 pounds in about 2 or 3 years. I can't exactly remember because I didn't, I don't remember exactly when I weighed myself last, but I was in the early 80 kilogram range, about 82 or something like that. And I got up to 92 kilograms. So in pounds, that's about 180 pounds up to 200 pounds, roughly, give or take. And I am now just starting to shift into a much more weighted calisthenics phase because I've hit the, my initial strength goals. And I highly recommend anybody that's doing calisthenics that before you start wanting to do weighted calisthenics, that you don't just have a number of the amount of pull-ups and dips that you can do, that you can do at least 8 reps of dips and pull-ups, full range of motion, for all 5 sets, not just for one set. You need to be able to maintain a good amount of dips and pull-ups for 5 sets before you start adding weight. And if you don't do that, if you start adding weight first, it's kind of like, in weightlifting, it's kind of like saying, I'm trying to do a 200-pound bench press, but I can't do 1 rep, so I'm going to try 220 pounds so that I can get stronger. It's kind of like doing that. So then how have I progressed with my training, and where do I see calisthenics and weights coming into it? Now, I should say this as well. If you don't have access to a gym, then calisthenics is a great option. I write home workouts for people who can't get to a gym, and they still get really, really good results. So I'm not saying that doing calisthenics first is going to be bad for you. I'm just saying if you had the option, and if everything was a perfect world, and if somebody says, should I start with calisthenics or should I start with weights? It's always about your goal. And, the reasons as to why you would do calisthenics is, in my opinion, this is for me, is it gives you more options. It gives you options to be able to train without a gym. And I like that. I do enjoy, if I'm on a holiday or if I'm at a park or whatever, and there's a calisthenics park and I know exactly how to do a full workout and I can get a really good workout in, like that's a fun feeling, and it's fun to do that. I enjoy training in a park with a mate more than I enjoy going into a commercial gym, in my opinion. I loved training at Unity Gym when we had Unity Gym in North Sydney. That was a really, really cool community, but I don't really like the vibe of a lot of commercial gyms. That's just me. I know a lot of you guys, and if you work with what you've got. I live at the Central Coast in Australia, and the nearest commercial gym to me is about a 15 to 20 minute drive, and I just don't want to spend that time during my day. So I've built myself a hybrid gym just outside my office there, and I'll talk you through what I mean by a hybrid gym in a minute, and how how you can build your own, and so on and so forth. And so that's and also calisthenics you can do some really cool skills with, and that's what attracts me to it. I like training to have an end goal of something that I really want to be able to achieve, and I like the idea of of unlocking calisthenics skills. And I've unlocked some cool calisthenics skills in my time since I started. Like I can do press to handstands now, and handstands and muscle ups, and a couple of other cool exercises that I couldn't do before I started doing calisthenics training, and so that's fun. And so, if you're like, I do really recommend anybody that's starting their journey that if you have the option that you do gym workouts first, and you build some real strength and some muscle mass first with gym workouts, or at least with hybrid workouts. And a hybrid workout is where you do a combination of calisthenics and weights. And the best way to do hybrid workouts, in my opinion, is you'll choose the calisthenics movements as your primary lifts, because they're always compound movements. When you're doing a pull-up or a dip or a push-up, that's called a compound movement, where multiple joints in the body are working in the same movement, as opposed to an isolated movement, for example, like a bicep curl, where it's only one joint that's working in the exercise. It's only the elbow joint that's working, so you're only training the biceps. Of course, there's more muscle groups that are being trained when you're doing a bicep curl, but the target is really just the bicep. So you do those first. You do those compound movements first. And the reason why you always do your compound movements first in a hybrid workout is because they're the hardest. If you do some bicep curls first and then you try and do pull-ups, you'll be far weaker, and it will be very, very hard for you to do any good reps. Like if you've already fatigued your biceps and then you go to do pull-ups where biceps are a big part of it, it'll be very, very hard for you to be able to do any good reps. So you do your compound lifts first. So for me, when I do calisthenics workouts, it's almost always a variation of, so I'm talking about just upper body workouts, of course. I also do lower body workouts, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because weightlifting is far superior for your lower body than calisthenics. So I'll talk about that in a sec. So my upper body workouts will always start with pull-ups and dips, and I will eventually transition again to doing handstand push-up work. But, I got to a point where I was doing wall-assisted handstand push-ups, and I still just wasn't happy with the raw strength and the muscle mass that I had. So I transitioned back to doing dips again, because dips are just a much better way to build up your chest and build up the pushing muscles with calisthenics. And so you'll do those first, and a general workout you'll do somewhere between 3 to 5 sets. It depends how much time you've got to work out, and whether you're a beginner or intermediate or a trained intermediate person. Beginners will do better with probably 3 sets, intermediate maybe 4 sets, and then somebody that's a trained intermediate like me, or a trained beginner, would be doing more like 5 sets for your compound lifts. And then the hybrid workout element comes in when you start doing weightlifting to supplement that. So I will do my dips and my pull-ups, and then because I want to maximize muscle mass on my chest, once I've finished doing those dips and I've done my 5 sets, I'm pretty fatigued. It's pretty hard to do more compound exercises with calisthenics, where I can't control how intense the exercise is very easily. So that's when I'll start bringing weights into the workout, and I'll do, to get more volume on my chest, I'll do dumbbell chest presses or chest flies, or I'll often do both of those, and then I'll pair them with dumbbell rows or with ring rows, and a bent over reverse fly or something like that. And so those are really good examples of how you can still get more volume on your chest and back muscles and on your biceps and triceps, but by using weightlifting, in a hybrid workout with calisthenics. Because, when you get to that 5th set of your pull-ups, you're going to be pretty fatigued. It's going to be very, very hard for you to do more sets of good quality pull-ups. So if you go to a ring row, for example, that's a way of using mechanical advantage to train the same muscle groups but make it an easier exercise. A ring row is considerably easier than a pull-up, but it trains all of the exact same muscle groups, so you can get more volume on the on those pulling muscles. And then same with chest press, it's training the same muscle groups as the dips, but you can get more volume on them by using weights and being able to choose the amount of weights you want. And then also where the hybrid workout element comes in is to train my rotator cuff and my scapular stabilizers. I'll do some external rotations at the end of the workout. I'll do some trap 3 raises. I'll do some inverted kettlebell presses for the serratus anterior. All these exercises are designed to create structural balance in the shoulder and prevent risk of injury, because when you have an imbalance between the inner unit and the outer unit, if you're prime movers like your pecs and your lats and your deltoids and biceps and triceps are really, really strong, but your inner unit like your rotator cuff and scapular stabilizers are weaker, then you are at risk of shoulder injury. So it's really, really important that you train that inner unit and outer unit in balance. So that's an example of hybrid workouts for the upper body. So now if we move to the lower body, the legs are like intensity, and the upper body, the shoulders and the arms, like complexity. So that means that with your upper body, it works quite well to use more complexity in your training, to be changing the exercise selections that you do, changing things through periodization, changing tempo, changing overload techniques, like using rest pause methods and wave loading and things like that. These are all changing exercise selection, going from a flat bench to a 30-degree bench from program phases, things like that, using pause reps. So the upper body really craves that complexity, and this is not for a beginner. At a beginner, you keep things more simple, but when you get a little bit further on, you need to challenge yourself. The reason why you're plateauing is because you're not using periodization and challenging yourself with different programming variables every 4 to 6 weeks. The lower body, on the other hand, craves intensity. The lower body responds really well. So the legs respond really well to just high intensity, so heavy lifting. So barbells are really the superior apparatus for training the lower body. Doing barbell squats, all variations, excuse me, low bar barbell squats, high bar barbell squats, and front squats, and doing deadlifts, deadlift variations like a conventional deadlift, wide grip deadlift, snatch grip deadlift, sumo deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, all that stuff. And then also split squats are really good. Split squats are great, and Cossack squats are great. And people do Cossack squats in calisthenics workout and split squats, but pretty quickly you'll be strong enough to be able to add weight. And this is why when you see a lot of hardcore calisthenics athletes, there's they often look like they've got the chicken legs going on. They just don't have the same muscle mass and definition in their lower body that they have in their upper body. And it's largely due to that they are training their lower body with just things like pistol squats and shrimp squats and things like that. And they just don't build the same muscle mass and the same strength as barbell workouts. So whatever your goal is, I highly recommend that you get some barbell training in for your lower body. And I don't have barbells at my house. So actually I do. What am I saying? I've got a barbell, but I don't have a squat rack. So the way I get around that is that I do very heavy split squats. And also for me, my legs have never been the problem for me. My legs hypertrophy very easily. And because I did Kung Fu for so long and rollerblading when I was younger, my legs developed very, very strong as a teenager and through my 20s. And so it's easy for me to maintain muscle mass in my legs and to maintain strength with doing weighted split squats and weighted Cossack squats and other variations. But if you don't have good leg strength, then you really want to get yourself under a barbell. So I've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to answer them now on YouTube. If anybody on Instagram or TikTok has questions, let me know. I've got to look at my phone here. And let's get through these here. Robloxer is saying, I improved a lot as only 14 years old. I can do 15 pull-ups and 100 push-ups in a row. Now I plan to do weighted with 10 kilogram push-ups and get to 20 pull-ups before getting weighted. You don't do dips. I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here. I highly doubt that you can do 100 good push-ups. Highly doubt it. I've never seen anybody do 100 push-ups with full range of motion and retracting their scapula while they touch their chest to the ground, and then protracting their scapula when they lock their elbows out at the top. So I would love to see a video of you do 100 push-ups where you keep your shoulders depressed, you touch your chest to the ground and retract your scapula under control, and then you push up and lock your elbows out and protract your scapula at the top. I'd love to see that because I've never seen it before. And I'm not saying that people can't do it, but I've never seen it. And I've seen some really, really strong dudes. So it's not about, and then same with pull-ups. I mean, there's plenty of people that can do 15 pull-ups, but it's not about how many you can do. It's about how many quality reps you can do. So I would be far less concerned about what the numbers that you can do. And I would be watching videos to learn how to do quality reps so that you can get that done. And you're saying, but like 100 push-ups with full range, but after like 30, I rest in a plank position and then I do 10. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Look, great work. You know, good on you for getting after it. You know, the better way to do strength training is to do sets of, you know, the same amount of reps through your sets. You'll develop more strength that way. You'll be able to get more volume. You know, that's the way almost every good strength training program is written. And you're saying, thanks for teaching us. You're absolutely welcome. So Amber is saying, does somebody's body weight limit their ability to do calisthenics? Absolutely. It absolutely does. If you are overweight at all, if you're carrying, you know, even if you're carrying just 20 pounds of fat on you, which isn't a lot in today's day and age. Like, it would make me look very, very different if I had 20 pounds of fat on me. But when you look at the average person in the Western world, most people are carrying about 20 pounds of fat on them that they could afford to lose. That would be like me putting a 20-pound weight on a dip belt for every single exercise that I did in a calisthenics workout, and that would cook me. We did that. We did this test once at Unity Gym. We were doing a workshop, and because everybody, you know, talks about wanting to unlock pull-ups and wanting to do calisthenics skills, and we made a point of saying, if you want to be good at calisthenics, your first goal should be to just get as strong as you can and lose fat and get down to a healthy body fat percentage. So for a man, we're looking at somewhere between sort of 10 and 14% maximum. Like, you really want to be getting down to about 11 or 13% if you want to be able to do calisthenics well. And for a woman can usually add about 10% onto what a man can acceptably have, because women just carry more fat naturally. And if women go too low with their body fat, at least women that are pre-menopausal, then that can really affect their cycle, a lot of other things. So we did this. We were doing this workshop one day, and we got one of our female members, Margot, who was in her 50s, who could do pull-ups. And she could do 3 pull-ups, and we got her to demonstrate a pull-up. We got her to jump up, and we said, show us a pull-up, Margot. And she did a perfect chest-to-bar pull-up. And then we grabbed an 8-kilogram kettlebell, which is about 17 pounds, about that. And we strapped it to a weight belt, and we said, now show us a pull-up. And she couldn't do one. So somebody who was strong enough to be able to do sets of 3 chest-to-bar pull-ups couldn't do a single pull-up with only 17 pounds of extra weight added. So does weight affect your ability to do calisthenics? It absolutely does. It is a very, very, very big part of being good at calisthenics. And if you are somebody who is overweight, I highly recommend that you focus on losing fat before you try to push yourself with calisthenics. That doesn't mean that you can't do calisthenics. You can still do things like, you know, ring rows and, you know, push-ups using a couch, things like that. But man, you really want to focus on getting that weight down before you start trying to force yourself into the more advanced progressions, because it's really it's going to be very, very hard for you. And if you go down that route of just getting frustrated that you're not making progress and you're not getting your numbers up, and then you try and force progression, you run the risk of doing what I did, which is where you get injured and you run into real problems. So watch out for that. Now, guys, if you want to know, because slap tears is something that so many of our viewers are asking about, and if you've watched this episode, you've heard me talk about how I overcame slap tears and then got back to building muscle and doing calisthenics and all that stuff. If you want to know how I did that, go and get the slap tear rehab blueprint. If you go to unitygym.com/slap tear, and you're running to the end of your last opportunity to join our UMS coaching at the discounted rate of $49. Our new rate is $79 per month. So if you want to get online coaching, you want to get all your programs written for you, you want to never have to guess about what you're doing again, never have to worry about periodization, because you'll have a new program coming every 4 weeks that's completely customized to your goals, your needs, and your ability. And you want to be able to get online coaching or every step of the way with a 24-hour turnaround to answers to any of your questions, form corrections, everything, all your nutrition done for you, joining an incredible tribe, a community with people around the world who are all supporting each other along the way. And come and join the UMS online coaching now, where you can get it for $49 instead of $79 if you go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount. You can grab one of our last 7 memberships that we've got available at the discounted rate. And that's it for me this week, party people. It is Friday here in Australia, so I'm going to do my last day of work before the weekend, and then I'm going to get ready for the weekend and spend time with my wife and my son. I hope you guys got something out of this. I hope you get something out of my live streams. If you're watching, I really thank you for your time. And whatever questions you have, Amber keeps asking the great questions and I keep answering them for her. So whatever good questions you've got, I will answer them on my live stream. So comment on any of my videos on any of my social platforms, and I always choose the questions that I think I can get the best, give the best value in, and I'll answer them for you on a live stream. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Keep those good questions coming in, and I'll